All right, so welcome everyone. I'm Ivy Rivera. I'm a psychic medium, a Taino Arawak, and I own a school called the Ivy League Psychic Academy where we train people online, internationally, in everything from psychic mediumship development to Reiki, to astrology, to numerology, to tarot, you name it, we do it. We train children as well as adults. And if you have empathic ability and you don't know what to do with it, you're overwhelmed, go to Ivy Rivera, EmpathicEducator.com. That's a whole separate series of trainings. I do encourage you to check that out for empathic training, but there's a full list of classes at ivyleaguepsychicacademy.com. If you need to book a reading with me, you can go to ivyriverapsychicmedium.com. Today, I'm doing a free mini class, part of my quarantine series since the pandemic hit, and today we're talking about pain. I want to discuss some of the main reasons people find themselves in pain and what the real solutions are, so that we're not just looking at this from a clinical perspective, which you hear plenty about, from a medical perspective, which, you know, is easy enough to access, pain pills and whatnot, but from an intuitive perspective here. I guess you could say spiritual or energetic, okay? Without this component, we will always remain in pain. We can't just put a Band-Aid over these things. We have to get to the root issues, and that's what we're going to do here today. I want to talk about some of the most common reasons people are in pain. Number one, you may have physical pain. Whether you were born with a disability, you have suffered some type of injury or a disease, you may find, especially those who suffer with back pain or a cancerous condition, you may find that your pain is so overwhelming and inescapable that you feel as though you are going out of your mind and often turning toward the darkness, because where else do you go? You can't escape the physical body. So physical pain is something that can also be manifested from emotional, mental, and spiritual states. So I don't want to talk today just about physical pain. I also want to talk about the awareness that we need to have that at the root issue of some physical pains is a mental, emotional, spiritual imbalance that wasn't corrected. Eventually, if you allow for yourself to suffer in those other areas, it will turn into some kind of disease or injury, or it makes you prone toward those types of injuries. So we need to treat physical pain long before it's there. And for those of you suffering with constant physical pain, the things we're going to talk about today will also help you to manage that even when you can't necessarily eliminate it entirely. All right, number two, another common reason people are carrying pain is from guilt. Now, guilt can come from many different areas, but I find most commonly with my clients, my own self, and my students, that it's coming from a few key things. Abuse as a child, neglect as a child, being put down as a child, or being put down in the society where you live. If you're marginalized, if you're a minority, if you're a female, you may have suffered more than what a lot of other people do. And the abuse from within the family, the greatest amount of pain comes from sexual abuse. We also see that people who are sexually abused are the most prone toward things like paranormal attachments and possessions. It's a really difficult area to overcome, where you are in control of your energy, your thoughts, and it requires a tremendous amount of mindfulness. But mindfulness is going to be at the core of everything that we talk about here today. So being mindful, avoiding that escapist tendency, especially where abuse and neglect are concerned, is going to be key. Okay, we may also carry guilt. Of course, it sounds silly, right? That somebody would feel guilty because someone else sexually abused them as a child. It's a very real thing, and we need to stop using logic when it comes to pain. It is an emotion, it's a trigger, and it may not match what logically seems right. So try to remove that aspect of it and stop judging it. Allow yourself to feel whatever it is that you feel. And guilt, it does tend to go hand in hand with those. Now, a lot of people are carrying guilt because they made a mistake. For those of you who have drug addictions, alcoholism, you may have been more prone to this than a lot of people are. Sometimes when you're addicted to something, or if you are an escapist personality, you're avoiding things, you may have made really bad decisions during that time when you were in that escapist frame of mind. It was, and I'm not justifying, but it can almost be like it isn't you sometimes. You know, you're not fully there because you are in escapist or avoidant mode. So when you're not fully there, you're not always being conscientious and you're not making the wisest decisions. This can mean that you not only made bad decisions for your own life and you're suffering the consequences and the pain of that, but you may have also hurt others, or you may have given up opportunities. You may have caused yourself a lot of defeat. And that amount of guilt doesn't go away easily. Okay. So again, we're not judging. We just want to be honest about what we're feeling. Right now, we're just allowing. Okay. We're just going to allow it. And that's going to be everyone's homework, is just to, you know, for a couple weeks, just sort of allow whatever, keep a journal on it. You're thinking, you're feeling. But that's a big one. Mistakes, regrets. Okay. Now, we can also have guilt as a survivor. Some of you were maybe in the military, or you survived a traumatic childhood where you watched other people get abused, maybe your siblings, and you got out, but they didn't, or you tried to take them with you, but the court put them back in, or you have a love partner or a parent that you were responsible for caretaking over. You know, maybe one of your children passed away or was injured. And you have this survivor's guilt because you keep thinking, was there something more I could have done? Is there something more that I could have done? We see this very commonly, and I do want to talk about this at this point with suicide. So when someone commits suicide, right, we hear this terrible myth that people who commit suicide are earthbound, that they are damned into damnation, they're in hell, or they're in like limbo, whatever that's supposed to mean. And none of that is true. Most people who commit suicide are very well prepared to move on and cross over into the light. And I do see 95, I would even say, % of the time that that's exactly what they do. I really don't commonly see earthbound spirits as being those who committed suicide, because you have to understand that that was planned out, okay? And I think that maybe focusing more on that, knowing someone who committed suicide and the survivor's guilt that you might have in relation to that, this can help you to know that that was a choice that they made. Okay. You have to distance yourself from that. You have to stay in your lane and detach a bit and say, well, that was their choice. They have their journey. I have my journey. But stop feeling as though you could have been some kind of God or savior in that situation. Typically people who do this, they made that decision quite a long time ago, and they are very prepared to cross over, and they do so somewhat beautifully. Okay, so we just have to acknowledge that it's okay and that life goes on. Are they going to have to redo a bunch of stuff? Yes, of course. You know, but there are a lot of people who live their lives into their hundreds and they haven't accomplished what they came to Earth to do either, you know, so it doesn't make them stagnant. A lot of people will not fulfill what they came here to do and will have to reincarnate and do it all over again anyways, and they didn't commit suicide. So let's not make it more than what it is. But it is, I think, important to also acknowledge that a lot of people who commit suicide will leave notes or pictures of what they felt was attached to them, or a possession that they had. And paranormal activity is a very real thing. And if we are going to appropriately deal with pain, we do have to deal with the fact that paranormal activity, dark lower energies of the universe can latch on and can get in if allowed to. So we have classes on that. You can check out Hauntings, Clearings, and Detachments. We have another clearings class up here on YouTube for free, but it's pretty light. And then you can always book a paranormal consultation with me if you think this is going on. But until we deal with paranormal issues, we stop treating them as though they are some kind of fictitious fantasy. We're going to have problems. One of the key issues with a lot of people who feel suicidal or struggle a lot with depression is clairaudient ability. Now, I did a free mini class called Depression, What Your Therapist Won't Tell You. I did another one called Anxiety, What Your Therapist Won't Tell You, where I talked about clairaudience. That is the ability for spirits to put thoughts in your head. If negative lower spirits are doing that, you are prone to thoughts of suicide and things like this. So be mindful and in control of your thoughts. See those videos on that. Okay, we have to let go of survivor's guilt. Another reason most people have guilt. Okay, they were punished for feeling joy. If you were a kid who grew up in an abusive household like I did, when me or my siblings would laugh, we would get beat up for that. We would get attacked. Not just like, it would have been outrageous for us to be able to run around the house and actually make noise and be happy. That was never going to happen. I'm talking if we were just even quietly whispering, my father would come up and we would take a beating for that. And you would have to watch, if you made your sibling laugh, you would have to watch that abuse. This messes with your head so much that any time you try to enjoy something in your life, well into adulthood, you automatically feel guilt, shame, and as though the other shoe is going to drop. You get very anxious, okay? So I am like, my natural tendencies now in life are, I'm like a chihuahua. I'm afraid to be happy. Even if somebody makes a joke, I'm almost like hesitant to laugh or acknowledge that I thought things were funny. I don't know how to be a child or childlike. This is a really, really common issue that we see connected to those experiencing things like anxiety and depression, suicidal tendencies, this ongoing pain, because joy is our enlightenment. Joy is where we get our energy level from. Right? That's even biblical, right? In peace and happiness, we feel that we are healing and we have the strength to do what we came to earth to do. Well, if you're not allowed, or you've had that happiness beaten out of you, it is eventually just a natural trigger for you to feel that happiness is a bad thing. And that's something, again, okay, all we're doing right now and for your homework is to acknowledge that. You don't want to judge it, but you do want to be open to examining that it is happening to you. Why is it that you handle positivity differently than maybe some other people that are healthier? Okay. All right. So, a few things to keep in mind in relation to guilt, all right? We're going to move on to number 3. Estrangement. Estrangement from your children, estrangement from your family, estrangement from literally any kind of estrangement to someone that you really loved, but also rejection. So these two can create a tremendous amount of pain. We see a high suicide rate with parents who are dealing with things like parental alienation in the court system. I think of all the dads and my dad friends, who find that if maybe their ex, they finally get bold enough to leave their ex in an abusive, toxic relationship, but they know that if they're going to do that, they're probably sacrificing rights to their kids. That the mother, because the courts favor the mothers, that she may be able to take them and run off, and he may be just paying a ton of money and never getting to see them and being bad-mouthed behind his back, right? Those are great examples of parental alienation techniques and narcissism. But, it leads to this estrangement that sadly sometimes can't ever be reversed, or it could take anywhere, they say, from 8 to 25 years, to reverse with eventually an adult child. Things like this are absolutely horrifying to think of, and they're going on all the time. And so a lot of people stay in toxic relationships because of that, and they're in tremendous pain because they think that their abusive husband is going to take the kids away, right? Or their abusive wife or the mother is going to take the kids away. And that's often used as a threat. And so we will do anything to avoid that level of estrangement. And we're also, looking at adults, let's say, whose kids never come around, things like this, or the family has outcasted you. I see this a lot with my students. They decide that they're going to go out and become a light worker, and they're doing such amazing things with that, but they're punished immediately. They're cut off. Their friends, their church, their parents, their family, they get cut off. So we call it in here, coming out of the closet. It's hard to come out of the closet. You could even be fired, your career. So you're finding that to step out is going to cost you everything in some area. So estrangement, rejection, literally one of the most painful things. The suicide rate, again, very high with parents who are especially dealing with that in regards to their children, because we, don't see that there is any way to fix that. And it can take so long to live with that pain, and the worry just increases, over time. So think of how it feels to have trusted a group of people also. Maybe you thought some people were your friends, then you found out they were backstabbing you or trying to take what you had. That level of rejection can be one of the most brutal wounds that you ever feel. So this is why we talk a lot in here about keeping your circle small and making sure you're dealing with other old souls, okay? Not petty people who are just there to take from you. So we have to learn how to handle these, because they don't really dry up quickly. And it can be the type of burden that you have to carry with you for a long period of time, okay? But we can also use this one to help others a lot. So that's a good point. Now, let's talk about number 4. This one's sort of more obvious, right? Death, loss. You lose someone close to you. You lose maybe your home. You lose your job, financial suffering, loss, distress with whatever was a resource to you. And when we look at our society, not just ours here in America, but internationally right now, just even due to COVID, how many people are dealing with the heartache, the actual physical manifestations at this point of, whether it be the loss of their home, their job, their financial security, they can't support their children, they're waiting in food lines, then we've got our loved ones contracting COVID, some of them actually passing away, others just suffering. And then that threat is always there, okay? Like, what if I catch it? What if I die? Who would take care of my kids? What if so-and-so gets, what do I do? What do I do? This is painful. I mean, this is painful. Right now, we have this huge awakening going on because everyone is in such an extreme place of pain. And anyone who isn't feeling it is such a knucklehead and is so detached that, there's absolutely no way at this point for them to connect with any intuitive area in their life if they're not getting this bigger picture, okay? Because it is contagious. Pain is contagious. And we did a free mini class here called Empaths and the Pandemic. Okay, so check that one out if this is making sense to you, in 2020, if you've become more intuitive and emotional and depressed and anxious and this and that, it's because we're picking up on the pain of others around us, okay? So it's hard to imagine some aren't, but the majority of us are, and you do not have to be an empath to pick up on that. Everyone's picking up on it. So that's why I did that free mini class. Check that out. But death, loss, financial distress, this is really going on right now. There are a million other reasons to be in pain. Like I said, I'll be taking questions here, and we'll be taking questions again at the end. But I just thought these were a couple key areas I wanted to bring up, and then we're going to move into the solutions now. Okay, Paulie, did you have questions or comments before I move into what we could do about it?
Yeah, Kimberly Austin 7 on TikTok. When you're talking about parental alienation and everything, she said that she's currently going through it. This is exactly what's happening to her. Her ex has taken the child, and he was very abusive.
Right. So, yeah, for those of you that are dealing with parental alienation, it can be hard because maybe you get on, some social media groups or something like that, and all everyone's talking about is suicide and how if things don't go right, after their next court date, they're going to lose their minds and things like this. And it's like, it weighs you down. Okay. It's very hard to talk about solutions. We're going to talk about this here in a minute too. So stay tuned, Kim, but we have to find ways to support ourselves sometimes in these unprecedented situations where the law hasn't caught up, the courts haven't caught up, the science, the psychology hasn't caught up yet. And the abuse is getting the power and upper hand because, a child is then being brainwashed and victimized. It's kind of like being in a cult, right? And so, yes, your pain level, not only for your own self, but also for your child. When you have an unhappy child, whether they fully realize it or not, as a parent, that comes back onto you. And so it can feel insurmountable, but we are going to talk about some ways with that. I also want to say this before I get into the rest of the curriculum here. For those of you who are dealing with a parental alienation system, I am writing a book on it's called the kid contract, and it has to do with life contracts and what we all sign on to. And so one of the really important things that we're going to talk about a little bit later here is that it's important to know why you came to Earth, and that if your children signed on to you, there was a purpose behind that, in the same way that you signed on to your parents. And that does include some hard lessons. And so it is what they chose, okay? So even though they're young, doesn't mean they didn't choose this before they came to Earth. There is a purpose there. Let's take a look at what the solutions are. I want to talk, number one, about joy. When you're in pain, joy can be the last thing that you think is possible, but it is imperative to your healing and your ability to sustain yourself that you find ways to tap in with joy. And what Spirit has shown me when I am in the worst depths of pain in my life, and I have been through many from day one, it's amazing I'm alive. One of the things that I've been shown repeatedly is that Spirit will come to me and say, don't feel bad. Don't feel guilty that you're not happy. Don't feel bad that you don't feel like everyone else. And that even in situations where you're supposed to feel great, you don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. Stop it right there. But what engages you? What is sort of a peaceful, happy, fun feeling for you? And without comparing it to everybody else's choices for fun, I will notice that when I'm engaged in something, whether it be artwork or it be writing or it be weird documentaries or it be alternative lifestyles or it be the spirit world, maybe it's exercise, maybe it is something I can do that's a little more hands-on, but really simple and has like no purpose. Like anything that I can do that makes me feel like I'm focusing and sort of engaged in an intellectual way or an energetic way, that is something I need to do more of. And there was a period in my life where Spirit would come and say, do more of this, do more of this. And it was something as simple as like sitting with some tribal music on in a dark room, just sitting with like a cup of tea, just literally sitting and doing nothing. And I would notice that people who would interview me would ask me questions. Well, what do you do for fun? And I was always like, oh my God, I hate that question so much because I'm gonna sound like such a weirdo. And I remember one time this guy asked me on a radio show, he said, well, what do you do for fun? And I said, I sit in a dark room and I put on my tribal music and I literally just like stare blankly off into the darkness. That's it. That's what I do for fun. He goes, oh my God, that's what I do for fun. And I was like, are you serious? Like, right? Aliens meeting each other. And so I learned that through whatever makes me feel like I'm having fun, it doesn't have to match what everybody else is doing. And I heal in those moments. And by allowing myself to do these weird things, I would eventually become more and more normalized. I would be able to engage in things like, maybe TV shows, going to the movies, or going shopping, or like, just mainstream stuff that's supposed to make people happy. And it would, so be willing to do whatever makes you feel engaged and focused, even if it's like maybe going to like a community hobby farm and petting goats, or like, I don't know, getting a fish tank and watching your fish eat, or watching your snails eat, or something very, very simple, having certain lights in your room that move a certain way. There are really basic things for those of us that are in a significant amount of pain that we have to sort of start with baby steps, okay, and allow for that to be your outlet for fun before you have these really high expectations. I would also say, don't allow other people to bully you into feeling weird, okay, as well. So if what they think is fun is not fun for you and you become introverted or you feel really drained in those circumstances, how come you're no fun, then don't go out with them, okay? You're not matching energetically right now. There's a time and a place for that, maybe, but it's definitely not right now where you are, okay? So joy is your strength. any way that you can engage in something that feels good to you, you're going to have a higher energy level. And it, again, is biblical that in your joy is your strength. And so the universe is always providing you with opportunities to heal and get engaged and renew your strength and your joy. But you kind of have to watch for them sometimes, all right? Especially when you're really down and out. All right, so simple engagement, peace. All right, that's enough. Peace makes me, I feel like I'm having a blast. I'm having a ton of fun when I'm at peace. That's it. I don't need fireworks. All right, let's talk about number 2, 3, and 4. And I want to just sort of place these together because these all have to do with you having trust in the universal order. So understanding that there is a method to this madness, that there is order in the chaos can help a lot. If you feel that you are nothing, you are insignificant, you are a speck on earth, there is no God, there is no universal order, there is no ancestor and spirit watching over you, you're really going to suffer a lot more than what you have to because A, it's not true, okay? And there's no way to like avoid all of your ancestors and all of the support of the universe. And, you know, that's a huge drain for you repeatedly where you're doing that to yourself. You're offending yourself by living against the truth. So you do have to be willing to abandon those ideas. So we want to say that there's trust in the universal order, all right? And that means that there are no accidents. That means that the things that have happened to you are things that you can convert through alchemy from negative into positive. We'll talk about that. But that many of us have actually signed on to these things before we came to Earth in what we call a life contract. So there is a reason for all of this. Your life contract, you can always book a life contract reading with me if you want to know what your purpose is here on coming to Earth. But we have a contract that we sign talking about major lessons that we need to learn and things that we really need to accomplish while we're here, okay, on this reincarnation. And we have a ton of help, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. So know that it has a purpose. So number one, what we want to focus on is what are the lessons? Look at every instance in your life that is creating you pain, that is creating for you, okay, a painful reaction, a discomfort, a need to escape or avoid. And I want you to say, what are the lessons here? What am I supposed to be learning? What most people do when pain is triggered is they try to look elsewhere and they may even try to pretend it isn't real at all. But for those of us who have learned that being mindful is key, we automatically stop and we say, okay, something is wrong. I am not happy with this. I am uncomfortable. What am I supposed to be learning from this? Keep a journal and start that process. The second step in this is asking, through the use of alchemy, transferring things from negative into positive, okay? How can I utilize this for my own healing? What can I do with this? Anytime anything offends you or hurts you, ask how you can use it in your favor. And step number 3 is how can I help others with this? So if you've got the first 2 down, you can move on to the third, which means that now you have taken something that was supposed to be or felt negative and you can use it for positive by assisting others through what you learned and the tools to either eliminate that level of pain or utilize it to go forward. All right, so we want to understand that there is a purpose to it. Ultimately, that purpose is to give it out and heal the world around you. So those that came especially with that abuse, if you were born into an abusive or neglectful family or an abusive or neglectful society, you're going to find that you have a bigger life contract in light work or the healing arts. Okay, you're really here to help others. That's a huge part of what you came to do and you cannot run from it. So let's move on. I want to talk about number 5. When you feel the pain, do not sit in it. Do not stew in it and do not spread it around. I daily go on my social media accounts and I post things on positivity and enlightenment and growth and development. And I always get these easier said than done, or people want to argue with me, or they want to spew their negativity out onto everyone else. If you don't have something positive to say, let's go back to kindergarten. Shut your mouth. Stop spreading your toxicity all over the place. We're all carrying a heavy load, especially right now. So if you don't have some way to contribute to the positivity, cut it off right there. This will help you, okay, energetically to heal your own self too, even though you probably don't care about that, okay? But this is what you need to do. You need to start working through stuff instead of just polluting the areas around you. One of the ways to do that is to be mobile. So a lot of people that are suffering a lot with pain, I understand that you can't really get that mobile, especially if it's like physical pain. It may be difficult for you to move around, or you have to wait for your physical therapy appointments or something for that, but find what you can do. You know, can you do muscle squeezing exercises? Can you do simple things in a chair? There are many ways to do what I call motion meditation. So it can also just be through simple movements, or even listening to music, or going for a ride in a car, anything that can create motion. Okay, if you're in a wheelchair, maybe somebody can push you along when they go for a walk. Find a way to create motion. Motion does not have to just be physical movement. It can be a state of mind. It can be your senses being in movement with, again, things like music or scenery. So there are ways to create it. We all need to move. We all need to flow. So when you're feeling pain, let's say mental and emotional, get on the treadmill. Go out for a walk. If you don't have any equipment, but you can run up and down a flight of stairs, I will sometimes just do that like 20 to 30 times. You literally feel like you're going to die. Okay, that is an extreme workout. There are ways to use your own body for resistance training. We don't all need weight benches, okay? We were designed to move, and we become really stagnant. We tend to prefer to just stay on the phone or just keep swiping. You know, you get engaged in things like Netflix. This is not movement. This does not count. You have to find something new to do. Okay, you also need to switch up your thoughts. If you find that you're in pain, let's look back at the root. At the root of every emotion is a thought, or a series of probably toxic thoughts that you need to replace with something more positive. And yes, I know that it's easier said than done. That's why I use simple tools like paper and a pen or Post-its. You know, I will post pictures of or words that are inspirational to put me back on track. Sometimes I have to write things on my hand, and I have to be like, oh, I caught that thought. I'm stopping it dead in its tracks. I'm doing it again. But what was I supposed to replace it with? Ta-da! It's written on my hand. Help yourself. Don't just decide it's too hard and you're not going to bother. You will stay that way, and it will get worse. Okay, we have to work toward this. So move, flow, switch your thoughts when you recognize that you're in pain. Don't sit in it, and do not spread it. Number 6, those of you who have been through something significant and it's causing you pain, you have an increase with your intuitive intelligence. I talk about 12 different increases for intuitive intelligence on my empathic awareness class, and I'm putting up a video later this week on TikTok. And when we talk about an increase in intuition, we have to understand that it cannot be reversed. With an increase, you can also see an increase in things like anxiety or ADHD-like symptoms, even depression. So it's not always really positive, but we want to understand that it is a tremendous ability that can be used for our own healing and other people's if we're managing it. And so pain is a major reason for an intuitive trigger. Now, you have more intuition. Ask yourself what you're supposed to do with it. Did it make you more psychic? Did it make you more empathic? Did it make you more mediumistic? Well, that's a huge opportunity. What can you do with it? Okay, join us for class here. Develop it. Use it. Get a tarot deck. Something. Okay, take a Reiki class. But don't just allow for it to build up in your energy field as something creating more disorder for you. All right, number 7, stop trying to impress everybody else. We think of the world as watching us, and the only people that are watching you that closely that would be really negatively critiquing you are creepers anyway, who don't need to be in your circle. I remember going like 15 years old into New York City for the first time and realizing that I was home. And what made me feel at home, and that feeling that I've never been able to shake, is that there were so many people, there were so many eyes, yet everyone was in their own flow and no one even knew you were there. So you're sort of like the center with so many eyes on you, and at the same time you're completely invisible, right? And that is a perfect metaphor for the world. No one's looking at you. No one cares. No one cares. You are putting yourself in more pain by deciding that you have to live up to someone else's expectations. So if you are worried about what other people think of you, you don't want to be vulnerable, you are probably denying that you're in pain at all, or it's coming as like the floodgates open and you're having these meltdowns and explosions. You can't be doing that. You need to be willing to process it as it comes. This is a great example too. When someone passes away, it's acceptable to wear sunglasses for a couple weeks, wherever you go, right? You're in the grocery store in the middle of the day. You got your sunglasses on. That's okay. Do what you need to do, but allow yourself to process as it comes and forget about everybody else. This is not part of their journey, okay? And how, if they get there at some point, will you be able to ever help them if you're not processing your own stuff? So see yourself as a healer, even if you don't feel that you've gotten there just yet. Number 8, you need to do a feng shui full-on attack on your surroundings. You need to ditch your reminders and your triggers. Do you have a sofa? Do you have a whole furniture set that was there when you were married and then you went through a horrible divorce and now that energy is around you every day? Are you estranged from your children, but you have pictures of them plastered up like shrines up all over your house? Do you have a ton of reminders in your car, your office space, in your home, especially your bedroom, of something that caused your trauma and pain? Get rid of it. Get rid of all of it. There is no point in holding on to objects which carry influential energy. We know this. It can be measured. If you are seeing these, you are coming into contact, you are actually picking up on more pain. So it's almost like a repeat cycle here. And it is a downward spiral we need to get rid of. You don't want to get rid of it. You don't want to throw it out. You feel guilty about getting rid of some of those things. If you think it's really important to hold on to them, like the pictures, for example, put them in a box. Put them in a box, put a lid on it, and keep one box. Put it away somewhere, and you can have it down the road if you need it. But I see too many people holding on to also clothing, shoes, purses, handbags, things like this, clothing that they wore during a time of pain and assault, onto them, or, even something lighter than that, like just a really horrible heartache or breakup. And every time you put that stuff back on your body, you're reinfecting yourself with that. You've got to get rid of, okay, what triggers you. Stop looking at it. Stop touching it. All right, number 9, stop drinking and using. If you are in a state of pain and you've been given prescription drugs, this is something that is going to make it harder for you to maintain the positive energy levels, but you can do it. It can be done. Millions and millions of people are doing it all the time. It just requires that you be mindful and that you keep a really strict routine on cleansing out toxic energy, Epsom salt in the bottom of your shower, and pay attention to any activity, paranormal, that might increase. But for those of you who do not need prescription drugs that are severely altering you, and not all prescription drugs do severely alter you, okay? But for those of you that don't need it, and you're in a state of pain, it is very possible that the alcohol and the drug use is increasing your problem. So when we talk about drugs and alcohol, we're talking about a gateway for paranormal activity. Don't think that there aren't energies in the universe that would love to see you in pain or would love to see an open doorway to be able to latch on to you. Remember, we talked earlier about suicide, and a lot of the suicide cases that I communicate with from the other side, or my clients, they may have even pictures from the person they know who committed suicide, drawings that they left behind, and they talk about these paranormal attachments and these possessions. This is a very real issue. And if this is the number one gateway is through drinking and drug use, and you could eliminate that, eliminate it. It will help you with the healing process. Again, for those of you who can't, watch the class and just maintain. You just have to be diligent. And that's fine. Okay, and for some, it's not a problem at all. Now, let's move on to number 10. Every time you feel pain, every time you feel discomfort, stop going outward. Stop going to other people to give you solutions. You go to therapy, that's great. You go and you reach out in a productive way to a trusted friend or a loved one who can help you to feel better, that's great. But to look outward all the time is not reasonable. To stay in therapy maybe for the rest of your life, if it's being unproductive, is not reasonable. To look outward to remedies like overspending or overeating, okay, or sex addiction or whatever, all right, that is not you filtering. That is not you going with the flow. It is a denial, trying to stuff it down in some way, or you're trying to go out to other people and give them the power that is rightfully yours. So how do you take your power back? You be introspective. The minute I go through any type of turmoil in my life, I make sure I silence myself, I detach from everyone else, and I just go in here and I start to ask my higher mind and the spirit network that I work with, what is it that's going on? How can I process it? How can I do what is best in this situation? What is the purpose? And I start working through that before I allow myself to go back out into the world. We have too many people who are all about the out here, and that can also lead to things like blame games. Well, if this situation was better, then I wouldn't be in pain. If this person was giving me what I rightfully deserve, then I wouldn't be in pain. If I could find the right doctor, I had a better insurance, then I wouldn't be in pain. And while some of this is legitimately stuff you're dealing with, we cannot stay there. We have got to go in and take our power back, okay? So be introspective when dealing with your pain. Number 11, I'm out of fingers, so we're just okay, number 11. 11. All right, so what else should you be doing? You should be tapping into your network. This is the number one thing I could tell you guys to do today that you need to take with you for the rest of your lives. And this is what I tell my students, my clients, my children, everyone. You must understand that you came to Earth with a network. So when you signed on to your life contract, this is what you agreed to come here and do. These are the lessons that you agreed to learn. These are the people that you agreed to work with. That's what you chose to do. You have to know that you came with 2 appointed angels and 5 guides. This is in addition to all of your ancestors that are watching over you. So energy does not die, it just transforms. And we need to understand that with the network that was appointed to us, that's where we're supposed to be going for healing, for answers, for solutions. When we come up with a goal or a game plan, they are in alignment with that. If it fits within the life contract, the answers are more simple than what you think. So if you have pain in your life from feeling lost, like you have no sense of direction, this could be a life contract issue, and the fact that you're not tapping in with your guides and your guardian angels. So we're given 2 guardian angels. We have a class called Coffee with Your Angels up on the website that will help you. We have another class called Meet Your Guides that will help you to meet all 5 of your guides. But you have one guardian angel who watches over your mental and emotional well-being. You have one guide who watches over your mental and emotional well-being. That's your joy guide. That guide was with you from the time of birth and was the loudest out of your guides. This was your imaginary friend or stuffed animal when you were a kid. That bond never breaks. We just learn to start blocking them out and ignoring them because that's what society tells us we have to do. When you are in a place of pain, this is a great opportunity for you to tap in with your guardian angel and your joy guide who watches over that part of your life at all times. They never leave your side. I just want to say on that note too, a lot of people start to feel that the pain is insurmountable because they've fallen into despair. Despair, by definition, is feeling that there is no way out. And when this happens, you can't see that miracles could ever occur, or you think, oh, it would have to take a miracle, but you've even lost hope in that. You literally are just in a state of despair. And I want to say that your guardian angel and your joy guide is there to keep you from that place. All right. There are many, many ways to bring healing. And even though you can't see it, by trusting that it exists and staying out of despair, it allows for the miracles to happen. So get in the flow of trusting the process. Okay. I just want to also suggest that one of the tricks you can use to stay out of despair is to look at how many times over the course of the day, how much energy you spend focused on negativity. Oh, I'm in pain. I feel like garbage. I don't feel like it. The memories, the flashbacks, the triggers. This horrible thing happened. This horrible thing happened. Or staying in the stinking thinking and not replacing it with positive thoughts. Well, it's too hard. You know, I just don't feel like it. This hurts. Think of how much time you spend in that place and compare that to how much time you put effort into feeling good. You replace those negative thoughts with something positive. You try to find joy, right? Again, which is often just engagement and focus on something more healthy. You move instead of staying stagnant in that energy. How much is it? Where's the balance? How imbalanced are you? Do a real evaluation as part of your homework here. And what I would encourage you to do to stay out of despair is to match it. So every time I notice that I'm thinking in a really toxic manner, and then my emotions start to go downhill, and then I start to physically feel like I'm going downhill, I will challenge myself to match it with positivity. And if you were to even do this a quarter of the amount, or maybe halfway, I think we could eliminate a lot of that despair, okay? Possibly not get there at all. Number 12. Get rid of toxic people in your life. If you have people that are dragging you down, if you have people that have caused your abuse, but you want to say, oh, well, those are my parents, or well, they're family, or yeah, but I married this guy. I don't care. Cut. Okay. We have a class up on the website called Relationships, Boundaries, and Cord Cutting. Get toxic people out of your life. The majority of suffering that we go through is because we are in a cesspool of toxic vampire people who don't want to grow, who are feeding off of other people's energy. And if you want to develop yourself and you want to become healthy and you want to eventually be able to even give something out, you want to eliminate your pain and eliminate the pain of others, you're going to have to start with this part of the process. I wish we could keep everyone that we love around, but that's not a reality, and we need to grow up sometime, okay? So get rid of it if that's what you need to do, because re-exposing yourself to them is just going to basically reinfect you with anything that you were able to eliminate. It is an impossible feat. Well, there are some relationships we could maybe set boundaries on. Sometimes those boundaries do involve no contact. Okay, so be realistic about that. And number 13, stop looking at what you've lost, especially for those of you right now during COVID who are mourning the loss of your career, your job, your house, your financial stability, your health, loved ones, things like this. When we are mourning what we've lost or what we've been forced to leave behind, maybe even to heal ourselves, maybe you did have to abandon people and now you just keep looking back. Oh my God, but I miss them. Whatever it is that you miss, understand that while it's a healthy part of the process to identify that and to allow yourself to feel that, you can't stay there forever. You have got to also focus on where you're going. You have got to focus on what you're building. You have got to focus on who else there might be out there for you. So don't just look in your rearview mirror. Focus ahead as well. And if you've done enough focusing on what's behind and it's no longer of use to you, you can't learn any more lessons from it, it's not helping you with your healing, it's time to cut that off and officially replace that with where I'm headed and what improvements have been made as your source of power. Okay. Have a goal, have a plan, have an outline, and stick to it. Okay. Do we have questions or comments coming in here?
Okay. And no one commented on all the homework you gave them yet. So.
There's a lot, but in the condition that we're all in, I'm sure you'll have plenty of opportunity to apply it. So,
I want just a couple quick comments I'll get out of the way before we get into the questions.
Okay.
Stormy, when you were talking about motion meditation, she says she gets adjusted by a chiropractor.
Oh,
yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And as far as removing objects, Bernadette said it definitely works, like repainting a room, rearranging furniture. I have done that, and it works to release bad juju.
Very good.
Yes. And Kayla says she's going to do all the homework.
Good.
Well, she had a question earlier that we're getting to right now, which is very timely, Kayla.
Okay.
Says, I struggle with family trauma a lot from my brother Stephen and my mother, and I try to be above it and heal, but I seem to be triggered by him. How can I overcome this pain? I feel like I have some suppressed memories from childhood.
So she's saying that she gets triggered by her brother and her mother, and she feels that primarily she's getting triggered by her brother, but doesn't know why.
Yeah, how can I overcome this pain?
Well, I mean, you have to look at the nature of the relationship, and it can really help a lot to know where it came from. But sometimes I think it's important not to overanalyze things. So if you've spoken to a therapist about it and you can't find the root trigger, if you've done all the work and the exercises in regards to your relationship with him and the family dynamics, or is it something that was maybe created by your mother or the parents? Did they create a weird dynamic between the two of you? If you really honestly cannot find it and you've gone through every outlet possible, I would say that it's possible it is past life, or it's energetic in some way. Or we would say, I have a class called Karma Contracts and Past Lives, where we talk about karmic contracts and debt and things like this. I think that the bottom line sometimes is just that you don't want to be around somebody because of the energy itself. And you don't need an excuse for that. You don't need to explain that to anyone. You don't owe him anything. And so it's very possible that as long as you've done whatever your contract is in that relationship, you've been there, you've been supportive, you've done what you should, you're free and clear to go. And so that can mean that you limit how much time you're around, you limit how much exchange you guys have verbally, energetically, but it can also be something where even if you do choose to be there and you do choose to be around, you're setting up like parameters with your energy. And that's some simple stuff. If you go onto my TikTok, I have simple 1-minute clip vids on a lot of this, where I talk about things like keep people at an arm's reach of you. Maybe you don't feel that bad being around him if you limit it. Maybe you're just doing too much right now. If you limit it appropriately, and then when you are actually in the physical space, you don't come too close. A lot of people have issues with family. They have emotional meltdowns and they're overwhelmed because they live in with a feely, touchy family who thinks that it's disrespectful not to kiss and hug and be in close contact. Well, for someone who has a trauma trigger or is like a level 3 or 4 empath, that is going to cause some serious meltdown, and anything ranging from depression to anxiety attacks to actual burning of the skin. We all have to know where our boundaries are. And I would say that that's a practice that you need to start applying when you deal with them. So less contact, less communication when there is space, and see if it isn't helping. One of the other things, I always recommend, if people really can't find the source of something and it's in relation to another person, book a past life reading with me and we can look at the nature of that relationship and see what was there. Sometimes there are just illogical, hidden reasons that have transferred over into this life, and it can be really uncomfortable. Yeah.
It's like you made this segue happen. Laurie had asked, can you carry guilt from a past life?
Oh my God, the survivor's guilt is woo. So I see a lot of people, for example, my middle child lived the first, I would say, 8 to 10 years of his life being stuck halfway in a past life where he carried survivor's guilt because he was, I don't remember if he was a general of the army or what it was exactly, but he was high ranking in this past life and it didn't go well in battle, and his men ended up dying, and then he ended up dying in the field. So my child was obsessed with military school and guns and having to serve. And I was like, what on earth is this? Because there were really two personalities going on. So I would say to him, is that really what you want to do? You want to go to military school? Like, you want to go really? Because most of the time you're talking about wanting to work with animals and getting into biology or zoology or, having all these different interests. It was just very, very conflicting in the personality. And I started to realize that he was having past life flashbacks. So we would see it in the dreams. We would see it anytime we drove past a military base or anything like this. And the level of guilt was so real. It was so tangible for a child who had never been held accountable for caretaking over others to this degree. It was mind-boggling and sincere. And so what I did was I had to kind of wait until he was 8, 9 years old and he could wrap his head around some of it. But I would let him talk about it all the time. I would engage in that conversation. Okay, tell me more. Well, are you sure? Well, are you sure that's how you feel? And he would often say, no, that's not actually how I feel. I actually feel like I want to go into zoology, but I feel like I have to go into the military. And I would say, okay, you see, this is the issue then. Let's start sort of flushing that out and seeing why that's happening. And when I want to say it was maybe 8 or 9, we did a letting go ceremony where we just communicated about it. And we said, okay, you know what? I appreciate this past life. I am going to take the lessons and the strength from that life, but it no longer serves me and I'm ready to let it go. And after that, he got over it real quick. But you would even see things with him like, the hand-eye coordination. He was obsessed with BB guns and things like this. He would hit a bullseye every time. This child who had never held a gun in his life the skill was there. So we can get stuck. I had another child that happened to also. It's a long story, but you can get stuck between several lives. Now we see this commonly with kids up until about 8 to 10, sometimes even into 15, 16. However, if we have any unfinished business from our previous lives, when we fill out our life contract and we come to Earth, we typically work out 2 to 3 of those over the course of our lives. So you could start tapping into a past life at any point and feel that your personality has really changed a lot. And I think people confuse these for walk-ins a lot as well. Yeah. I also want to say there was someone earlier who mentioned that what she does to create flow and movement for what I refer to as motion meditation, some kind of energy flow. She goes to a chiropractor. You could also do things like Reiki, we're always doing Reiki here from the Academy. Do something. If you are not in a physical position to get your energy moving, have someone else do it for you, or learn how to do things like Reiki for your own self, get that energy moving. Many, many ways. Mm-hmm.
Ilana says that she grew up in a somewhat abusive household, and now she's starting to want to break relationships with her parents. Is this the right thing to do?
Well, no, I can't tell you that. I mean, I can't tell you what's right or wrong for you. That's a huge part of your healing process, is you taking your power back and you deciding what's right or wrong for you. What did I just said a minute ago? Don't be looking out to everyone else to answer your questions. That's a sign of, you don't know yourself. You're not trusting yourself. Don't be asking me that. Don't be asking your parents that. Don't ever trust your well-being to the world around you. The world will eat you up alive and spit you out. Don't trust that to anybody. If you feel that it is the right time for you to create boundaries with people who abused you, then that's what you need to do. And if you are, questioning that to this degree, it's very possible that you're still really entrapped in that victimhood mentality and you don't feel ready to take that next step. And we have to understand that we don't have to feel anything to do something. You can be shaking and in fear and devastated and sad, or emotionally crippled, and still do what you need to do for yourself. Don't wait to feel it.
We have two that are similar to about cutting off some statements. Gloria says that she chose not to rebuild her mom's side of the family's relationship. The mom cut it off and said she knows it's better, but it has been a grief process for her, having these family members cut off.
That's a really good point, yeah.
And Jenna says that she recently cut out her closest friendship because it felt toxic and codependent, and her negative energy was draining, but she can't get her out of her mind. She's trying to set boundaries and process that it's not her responsibility to help her learn certain lessons.
And that's a tough one too. So yeah, we've got one person saying that they let go of family that was behaving toxic. And then we've got someone else who's saying that, you know, they had to let go of a friend, and both are tricky in their own way, but especially with the friendship stuff, you know, that was a choice that you made. So that can be even harder at times to let go of someone that was a special part of your life that you invited in to carry that position. I think that it's really important to look at people as nothing more than what they are. So I tend to just see every person as an open vessel of energy. We are all wide open channels of energy. We all have an opportunity every day in every moment to either be in a growth mindset or to be stagnant. And when you have chosen to be a person who wants to develop and grow and keep a high vibration of energy, then you are inevitably going to outgrow many, many others. Family, friends, spouses, children, you name it. It's going to happen. And you have to always just look at it as this sort of black and white thing, that there are people who want to grow and there are people who do not want to grow. Okay. And that's it. That's all there is to it. So we can't stay in areas of stagnancy. We can't stay in relationships of stagnancy, or in habits in our life that perpetuate that. It's not the human way. It's not the way of energy. And that's all we are. We're energy. So just be mindful that anyone you're dealing with right now, as much as you love them today, they could be in a completely different place in a year or two or three or four. So this is why we don't hold on to people. This is why we don't ever give all our trust or our happiness over to someone else and give up that level of power. We have to always be prepared to step out on our own if that's what our growth calls for. That's why you came to Earth. If they don't get that, they don't get that. But you will surpass everybody. Quite possibly. And you know what's also amazing about it? I can't even think of how many times I had a friend or a family member that I thought would be there forever, and I just surpassed them, and not thinking that way, but then realizing that they were toxic or negative, you know, in my life. And it was like, why did that happen? How did that happen? Well, because I have such a growth mindset. I am always looking on how to improve or what's next or what the next level is or what the truth is, right? I'm obsessed with the truth of the universe. And every single time I have been devastated, and every single time I have had a new member or many members of my tribe show up on the next level. So, right, every time the bus stops, somebody's got to get off and someone new will be getting on. So
that's a great way to look
never
at
alone.
It. It's like closing the door, opening a window, you know, but with people. I like that.
That's right.
Yeah. Jen said, I really needed to hear that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Laurie says, my granddaughter has been fighting with leukemia for over 4.5 years. She is now 8. The disease keeps coming back. My heart is breaking. What can I do for myself and my family?
Well, 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, we did a video on here called Stay in Your Lane. And I think that will help you a lot with that question, because there are many things that you can do. I think it was like a 1-hour class maybe. So check that one out. And I think it's also important to look at emotion versus intuition, another free mini class that's up here. We have this ability to heal other people. And when someone around us is suffering that we really love and care for, especially in your situation where it's affecting everyone, so everyone's sort of suffering, you're going to feel responsible to the core of your being to do something, so much so that you don't even realize you're doing it. You're probably doing it night and day, and that's going to ultimately break down to your thoughts. Things like worrying, overthinking, trying to find answers to solutions, what ifs, could I do something more with this? Anything to help them. And you have to understand, a lot like we were just speaking to the other person here who asked about survivor's guilt in a past life. You have to understand that if you don't perfect this lesson in this life, you will reincarnate and have to learn it again. We don't want that. So what are the lessons here? The lessons here are that you need to learn to stay in your lane. You need to do for your own self what you're supposed to do. And you need to give from that place of wellness and give the help to others when you can and when you're supposed to, but not beyond a point that you should. Because when we cross that boundary, when we don't stay in our lane, we get karmic kickback. So we suffer more karmically than what we should. And so there's no such thing as martyrdom, right? Like, that's an illusion. Then you have everyone else suffering, you're suffering. Just watch the classes and understand when you should be making a decision from a place of intuition versus emotion, which will overrun it all the time. You're going to have to learn to tune out a lot of your feelings, and that will make you more skilled in staying in your lane. So I think that it's really about you being able to channel through divine guidance what it is that you're here to do, but also learn the lessons and learn how to apply them in your own life. You master this, you have mastered this for an eternity. And it is the big one, very hard. Mm-hmm.
We have a final comment from Bernadette regarding focusing your energy, like alchemy and stuff. She said that focusing your energy, recognizing it, and changing it for the better was something that she learned until she was really older. And she wasted years of dwelling in negative thoughts without realizing it. And that's... So a lot of people very, very happy to have your classes here.
It's very easy. Yeah, it's very easy to have so many more negative thoughts than we realize we are. And we often don't realize that we have all those negative thoughts until we have a physical problem, a physical manifestation of those toxic thoughts. And then, we can eventually track it back and be like, oh, okay, all of my toxic thoughts were leading to my toxic feelings. My toxic emotions and feelings eventually led to my physical problems. But we really don't need to go that far out at sea. If we're mindful, we are able to conquer this bit by bit. And as we set a habit, a growth mindset, it will get easier. Healing will become the habit, not being overrun by toxic thoughts. And I don't care what it is. I don't care if you were a drug addict, you did things that you're absolutely ashamed of, you're estranged from your children, you were in a car accident, you have horrific back pain. I don't care what it is. Okay, we can all do this. It just requires diligence. But what else do you have to do? Like, you're here. You're here. Yeah. You don't want to reincarnate and do it all over again from scratch, right? You're further ahead now than you have ever been or you will ever be. Just do it. Just do the hard work. Master it. And be able to teach other people. We have too many people worldwide running to the drug cabinet, running to the doctors, for a pill. There's no quick fix on this. Running to the alcohol bottle, sex addictions. I mean, we have to work on ourselves. We have to get back in touch with our roots. And do not forget that you have help. You have the 2 angels that were appointed to you. You have 5 guides that were appointed to you. And your ancestors are never going to leave you alone. As much as you may ignore them, never ever. Okay? So tap in with your network when you do feel that it's too hard and you're not able to pull it off. Pull in that network. All right. I do want to say thank you to our members. So that is Bernadette Ruoff, Jill Marie, Chicken Mama, Carrie Watson, Vanessa Dempsey, Gloria Augusto, Angelica Pilar, Candace Kempton, Lori Filon, Jamie Joe, The Pisces Goddess, Cheryl Gottman, Mary Hodgson, Heather, Amy Nicole, Amanda Hebert, Katie Vigavelio, Donna Hanger, Butterfly Rasta Girl, Julie Campbell, Dakota Miller, Camille Wolf, Heather Fitzgerald, Colleen Kasiba, And thank you to everyone who donated. Again, you want to hit that donation button, feel free to do that. Or you can also go to ivriveraPsychicMedium.com to donate. If you need to book a reading with me, you can do that through the website. You can also go right through my website to see a full list of classes at the Academy. See you guys soon. Thanks so much.